Document Part 1. The silence of space was vast and unbroken. A quiet so profound that it made Ethan Cole feel small in a way nothing else ever had. He floated outside the stellar horizon, tethered to the ship by a thin cable, his gloved hands gripping the edge of a damaged probe. The probe wasn't much to look at, just a boxy piece of machinery with blinking lights and exposed wires, but it was critical for mapping Saturn's rings. Without it, the mission would be delayed, and delays were something Captain Lisa Monroe hated more than anything. Ethan adjusted his helmet, the faint sound of his breathing filling the void inside his suit. "Almost done here," he said into the CUM system, his voice calm but tinged with effort. "Just need another minute." "Take your time," came Lisa's reply from inside the ship. Her tone was measured, professional, but there was a hint of impatience underneath. She always sounded like that when things didn't go according to plan. "We've got all the time in the universe out here." Ethan chuckled softly, though no one could hear him. All the time in the universe, that was true enough. Out here, far from Earth and its constant noise, everything moved slower. Even emergencies felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's life. But as Ethan tightened the last bolt on the probe, something unusual caught his eye, a flicker of movement. Near the edge of Saturn's rings, at first he thought it might be debris or maybe a trick of the light. Space played tricks on you sometimes, especially when you'd been staring at the same endless blackness for hours. But then he saw it again, a faint glimmer, like sunlight, reflecting off metal. It wasn't supposed to be there. He frowned, tilting his head slightly to get a better view. Captain," he said, his voice hesitant now. "So you seeing this?" "What am I looking for?" Lisa asked, after a pause. "There's something out there. Near the rings? Could be. I don't know. A ship? Or part of one?" Lisa's response was immediate. "Are you sure?" "Run a scan." Ethan tapped a few controls on his wrist console, activating the sensors built into his suit. The readings came back slowly, the equipment struggling against the interference caused by Saturn's magnetic field. When the data finally appeared, Ethan's stomach dropped. Whatever it wasn't natural, and it was drifting closer. "It's artificial," he reported, his voice tight. "Definitely not ours. Looks like an escape pod." Lisa's sharp intake of breath crackled through the cums. "An alien vessel?" "I don't think so," Ethan replied quickly. "It doesn't match any known designs." "Wait," he squinted, leaning forward as much as his tether allowed. There was something painted on the side of the pod, faded but still legible. Letters. Human letters. "Oh no," Ethan whispered, his heart pounding. "This is human." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The implications hung heavy in the air between them. A human escape pod floating near Saturn's rings? It shouldn't be possible. Humans hadn't ventured this far into space without support ships in decades. Even if they had, what would they be doing out here alone? "We have to retrieve it," Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. "No," Lisa shot back immediately. "Absolutely not. We're under strict orders not to interfere with anything we encounter unless it poses a direct threat. You know that."
But it's
"Human," Ethan insisted, his frustration bubbling over. "What if someone's alive in there? What if they need help? What if it's a trap?" Lisa countered. "We don't know where it came from or why it's here. For all we know, bringing it aboard could put us all in danger." Ethan clenched his jaw, staring at the pod as it drifted lazily past him. He wanted to argue further, to point out that humanity's greatest strength had always been its compassion, not its caution. But he knew Lisa wouldn't budge. She followed the rules to the letter every single time. Still, something about the situation tugged at him. Maybe it was the way the pod seemed to shimmer faintly in the sunlight, almost like it was calling out for attention. Or maybe it was the thought of leaving someone behind, knowing full well they might die without help. Either way, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that turning away would be wrong. "I'm grabbing it," he said quietly, making up his mind. "What?" Lisa snapped. "Ethan, you are not authorized to," but Ethan was already moving, using his thrusters to close the distance between himself and the pod. The tether connecting him to the stellar horizon went taut, forcing him to reel it in manually as he approached. The pod was smaller than he'd expected, barely large enough to fit one person. Its surface was scorched and dented, evidence of some kind of violent event. Reaching out, Ethan grabbed hold of the pod and pulled it toward him. His movements were careful, deliberate, as if afraid the thing might fall apart in his hands. Once he had it secure, he activated his thrusters again. Heading back toward the ship, "You're going to regret this," Lisa warned, her voice cold. "Do you understand what kind of trouble you're inviting?" Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. His focus was entirely on the pod, on the possibility that someone inside might still be alive. As he reached the airlock and began the process of bringing the pod aboard, he felt a strange mix of fear and hope swirling in his chest. Fear of what he might find, and hope that he could make a difference. When the outer door of the airlock sealed shut and the pressure equalized, Ethan removed his helmet and stepped inside. The pod sat motionless in the center of the chamber, its metallic surface gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. With trembling hands, Ethan opened the hatch. The interior was cramped and dark, filled with the acrid smell of burned wiring and charred plastic. Slumped against the wall was a figure barely recognizable as human beneath layers of dirt and dried blood. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, her blonde hair matted and tangled. Her breathing was shallow, irregular, but she was alive. Ethan felt a surge of relief, followed quickly by dread. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was she here, millions of miles from Earth? As he carefully lifted her out of the pod and laid her on the floor, she stirred, her eyelids fluttering open just enough to reveal glassy blue eyes. For a brief moment, she seemed to focus on him, her lips parting as if trying to speak. "There. Coming?" she rasped, her voice barely audible. Then her eyes rolled back, and she slipped into unconsciousness. Ethan stared down at her, his mind racing. Whoever she was, whatever she meant by those two words, one thing was certain: his decision to bring her aboard had changed everything. Document Part 2. The news of Ethan's discovery spread quickly through the stellar horizon. Within minutes, Captain Lisa Monroe arrived in the airlock, her face a mask of controlled anger. She stood over the unconscious woman, arms crossed, her sharp gaze flicking between the stranger and Ethan. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "What were you thinking?" Lisa demanded, her voice low, but laced with frustration. "You disobeyed a direct order." Ethan didn't look up from where he knelt beside the woman. He was checking her vitals again, making sure she was stable. "I couldn't leave her out." "There," he said simply. "She's human. We don't abandon our own." Lisa sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose as if trying to ward off an impending headache. "You don't know who she is or what she represents. She could be dangerous. She could be part of something bigger than us." "She's hurt," Ethan shot back, his tone firm now and barely alive. "Dangerous people don't usually end up like this." Lisa opened her mouth to argue further, but before she could speak, Dr. Rachel Meyer pushed past her into the airlock. Rachel was the ship's chief medical officer, a petite woman with curly brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. She carried a portable scanner in one hand and a medkit slung over her shoulder. "Move aside," Rachel ordered, dropping to her knees beside the woman. She ran the scanner over the stranger's body, her expression growing more serious with each passing second: multiple fractures, internal bleeding, signs of exposure to extreme temperatures. Whoever this is, she's been through hell. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't considered how bad her condition might be when he brought her aboard. All he'd thought about was saving her. Now, looking at her battered form, he wondered if he'd made things worse by bringing her here instead of leaving her to whatever fate awaited her in space. Rachel glanced up at him briefly, her eyes narrowing. "You're lucky she's still breathing. If you'd waited any longer." "I know," Ethan interrupted, his voice softer now. I couldn't stand by and do nothing." Rachel didn't respond. Instead, she focused on stabilizing the woman, attaching small patches to her skin that delivered painkillers and clotting agents. Once she was satisfied the stranger wouldn't die in the next few minutes, Rachel turned to Lisa. "We need to get her to the infirmary," Rachel said. Lisa hesitated, clearly torn between following protocol and doing what was right. Finally, she nodded. Fine, but once she's stable, we figure out who she is and why she's here. Until then, nobody talks about this, not even among the crew. Understood? Everyone nodded, though Ethan looked uneasy. Keeping something like this quiet went against everything he believed in. Secrets had a way of coming back to bite you, especially in deep space where trust was already fragile. But for now, he kept his mouth shut and helped Rachel transfer the woman onto a stretcher as they moved her through the narrow corridors of the stellar horizon. Ethan couldn't help but notice the looks from the other crew members. Some were curious, others wary. Word had already gotten around that something unusual had happened during Ethan's repair job. Rumors spread fast on a ship this size, and it wouldn't take long for everyone to piece together the truth in the infirmary. Rachel worked tirelessly to patch up the stranger, stitching wounds, setting broken bones, and monitoring her vitals. Ethan stayed nearby, watching silently as Rachel moved with practiced efficiency. He wanted to ask questions about the woman, about the pod, about what might have happened to her, but he knew better than to interrupt Rachel while she was working. Finally, after what felt like hours, Rachel stepped back and sighed. Liv, she announced, pulling off her gloves. But she's not out of the woods yet. Her body's been through too much trauma. It'll take time for her to recover, and when she wakes up, Ethan asked, his voice hesitant. Rachel shrugged. That depends on her. Physically, she should be fine. Mentally, she trailed off, shaking her head. Who knows? Whatever she went through, it wasn't good. Ethan nodded, glancing at the woman lying motionless on the bed. She looked younger now that her face was clean, her features delicate and almost childlike. There was something haunting about her, though the sense of fragility that made him want to protect her, even though he didn't know her. For the next several hours, Ethan stayed in the infirmary, unwilling to leave until he was sure the woman would pull through. Rachel eventually kicked him out, insisting he needed rest, but he only retreated to the mess hall, where he sat alone with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. His mind raced with possibilities. Who was she? How had she ended up so far from Earth? And what did she mean when she whispered they're coming? The next morning, Ethan returned to the infirmary to find Rachel already hard at work. The woman was still unconscious, but her vitals had improved slightly overnight. Rachel greeted Ethan with a nod, her expression grim. I found something interesting, she said, holding up a small device. It looked like a thin metal bracelet, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed almost alien. This was embedded in her wrist. Took me a while to remove it without damaging it.
Oh, what is it?
Ethan asked, leaning closer to examine the object. It's some kind of neural implant, Rachel explained. Advanced way beyond anything we've got. Whoever gave her this didn't skimp on quality. Ethan frowned. So, she's not just a random survivor? Someone invested a lot in her, exactly. Rachel placed the implant on a table and connected it to a diagnostic console. A series of strange symbols appeared on the screen, scrolling. Rapidly, I'm trying to decode it, but it's encrypted. Might take a while. Before Ethan could respond, the door to the infirmary slid open, and Lisa walked in. Her presence immediately filled the room, commanding attention. She stopped. Beside the bed, staring down at the unconscious woman with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Any progress? She asked, her tone clipped. Some, Rachel replied. We're decoding the implant, but it's slow going. Whoever designed it didn't make it easy to crack. Lisa nodded, her gaze shifting to Ethan. And you're still convinced this was the right call? Ethan straightened, meeting her gaze squarely. Yes, I am. Lisa studied him for a moment, then turned back to the woman. Let's hope you're right, because if you're wrong, we're all in trouble. Later that day, Rachel finally managed to extract fragments of data from the implant. What they found left them speechless. This is insane, Rachel muttered, her eyes glued to the screen. According to these logs, she was part of a classified mission. Diplomatic negotiations with. Hold on. She paused, scrolling through the information. With the Zithrians, Ethan blinked. The Zithrians. As in the aliens we've never actually met. The same ones, Rachel confirmed. Apparently, humanity's been trying to establish contact for years, but secretly, this woman, her name's Claire Dawson, was sent as part of a team to broker peace. Lisa rubbed her temples, clearly overwhelmed. Peace with the Zithrians? Why would anyone think that was possible? Because they're powerful, Rachel said bluntly. We can ally with them. We gain access to technology and resources that could change everything. But if we fail, she'll let the sentence hang unfinished. Ethan leaned forward, his pulse quickening. What happened to the mission? Rachel hesitated, then pointed to a section of corrupted text. It's unclear. Something went wrong. The logs mentioned betrayal, sabotage, and an attack. An attack by whom? Lisa pressed. Rachel shook her head. That's the problem. It doesn't say. Either the data's too damaged, or someone wiped it intentionally. Ethan stared at the screen, his mind racing. If Claire had been part of a secret mission to negotiate with the Zithrians, then her presence here meant something had gone horribly wrong. And if the Zithrians found out she was alive, we need to warn Earth, Lisa said suddenly, breaking the silence. If the Zithrians are involved, this isn't just our problem anymore. No, Ethan countered sharply, surprising even himself. Not yet. We don't know enough. If we tell Earth, they'll panic. They'll act without thinking. And what do you suggest we do instead? Lisa snapped. Wait for the Zithrians. To show up and demand answers? Ethan clenched his fists, his frustration bubbling over. Maybe we find out what really happened first. Maybe we give Claire a chance to explain. Lisa stared at him, her jaw tightening. For a moment it seemed like she might argue further, but then she sighed, shaking her head. Fine. But if this blows up in our faces, it's on you. Ethan nodded, knowing full well the weight of her words. Whether he liked it or not, the fate of the stellar horizon and possibly Earth itself now rested squarely on his shoulders. Document Part 3. The days that followed were tense and uncertain. Claire Dawson remained unconscious, her body slowly healing under Dr. Rachel Meyer's careful watch. The crew of the stellar horizon moved about their duties with a sense of unease. Whispers spreading like wildfire through the ship. Everyone knew something big had happened, something dangerous, and they couldn't help but speculate. Ethan. Cole spent most of his time in the infirmary, either sitting quietly by Claire's bedside or helping Rachel decode more fragments of data from the neural implant. Each new piece of information only deepened the mystery. Bits of corrupted text hinted at betrayal within the diplomatic team, while strange symbols suggested advanced alien communication protocols. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't piece together the full story. Captain Lisa Monroe, meanwhile, struggled to maintain control over the situation. She held emergency meetings with her senior officers, debating whether to inform Earth Command about Claire's presence aboard the ship. Some argued for immediate disclosure, fearing the consequences of withholding such critical information. Others, including Ethan, pushed back, insisting they needed more answers before making any rash decisions. This isn't just about us, Lisa said during one particularly heated meeting. If the Zithrians find out we have one of their guests, they could see it as an act of war. And if we tell Earth without knowing the whole truth, they'll jump straight to war anyway. Ethan countered, his voice rising. We need to figure out what really happened to Claire first. That's the only way we can make the right call. Lisa glared at him, clearly frustrated but unable to refute his logic. Fine, but if things go south, don't expect me to take the fall. For this, on the 5th day, Claire finally woke up. It happened late at night when the ship was quiet, its corridors dimly lit and empty. Ethan had been dozing in a chair near Claire's bed when he heard a faint sound, a soft groan, barely audible over the hum of the medical equipment. His eyes snapped open, and he leaned forward, watching as Claire stirred weakly. Her eyelids fluttered, then opened halfway, revealing glassy blue eyes that darted around the room in confusion. For a moment, she seemed disoriented, unsure of where she was or who he was. Then recognition dawned, and her lips parted slightly. You, she whispered, her voice hoarse and raspy. You saved me. Ethan nodded, leaning closer. Yeah, I did. How are you feeling? Claire didn't answer right away. Instead, she closed her eyes again, taking slow, shallow breaths. When she spoke, her words were halting, as if each syllable required immense effort. Where am I? You're on the stellar horizon. We found your escape pod near Saturn's rings. Claire's brow furrowed, and a flicker of panic crossed her face. No, that's not possible. I shouldn't be here. They'll come looking for me. Who will? Ethan asked gently. The Zetherians. At the mention of the name, Claire froze. Her eyes widened, and she grabbed Ethan's arm with surprising strength for someone so frail. Don't say that name, she hissed, her voice trembling. Don't. Ethan exchanged a glance with Rachel, who had entered the room unnoticed. The doctor approached cautiously, her expression calm but alert. Claire, she said, softly, we need to understand what happened to you. Can you tell us anything? Anything at all? Claire hesitated, her grip on Ethan's arm loosening. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she turned her head away, staring blankly at the wall. I can't, she whispered. I can't talk about it. Rachel placed a reassuring hand on Claire's shoulder. It's okay. You don't have to say anything yet. Just rest. We're here to help. But even as Rachel spoke, Ethan noticed something troubling. Claire's breathing had grown erratic, and her hands trembled visibly. Whatever memories she carried, they were too painful or too dangerous for her to confront. Over the next few days, Claire regained some of her strength, though she remained guarded and distant. She refused to discuss her mission or the events leading up to her rescue, instead focusing on small, mundane questions about the ship and its crew. Despite her reluctance to share, Ethan sensed that she trusted him at least a little. He made an effort to visit her often, bringing books from the ship's library or simply sitting with her in silence. During one of these visits, Claire surprised him by speaking unprompted. Why did you save me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated, caught off guard by the question. Because it was the right thing to do, he replied after a moment. You were hurt, alone. I couldn't leave you out. There. Claire stared at him, her expression unreadable. You don't know what you've done, she said finally. By bringing me here, you've put everyone in danger, including yourself. Before Ethan could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Lisa Monroe's voice echoed through the room, sharp and urgent. Attention all crew members. We have incoming vessels approaching our position. Prepare for potential contact. Ethan felt his stomach drop. He glanced at Claire, whose face had gone pale. Is it them? He asked quietly. She didn't answer. But the look in her eyes said everything. Moments later, alarms blared throughout the stellar horizon, jolting the crew into action. Ethan rushed to the bridge alongside Lisa and the rest of the senior staff, leaving Claire in Rachel's care. As he entered the command center, he saw the main view screen displaying a cluster of ships emerging from the darkness of space. Their design was unmistakably alien. Sleek vessels with glowing blue accents that pulsed rhythmically, like living organisms. They're hailing us, announced Lieutenant Jordan Hayes, the communications officer. His voice wavered slightly, betraying his nerves. Put them through, Lisa ordered. Her tone steady despite the tension in the air. The screen flickered, and a towering figure appeared, looming over the crew like a colossus. Its skin shimmered with iridescent hues, and its elongated limbs ended in claw-like appendages. Two large, multifaceted eyes dominated its face, reflecting light in eerie patterns. This was a Zitherian, an actual Zitherian, and Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. I am Vaelther, the creature rumbled, its voice translated into English through a synthesized filter. Ambassador of the Zitherian Accord, you possess something that belongs to us. Lisa stepped forward, her posture rigid. State your business, she demanded, her voice firm. Vaelther tilted its head, studying the humans with an unnerving intensity. Your actions have violated sacred protocols. You harbor a fugitive one who bears witness to crimes against our people. Surrender her immediately, or face the consequences. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Ethan's mind raced. Fugitive? Crimes? What had Claire been involved in? "We don't know what you're talking about," Lisa lied, her tone unwavering. "We are peaceful explorers, conducting routine operations in this region of space." "Do not insult my intelligence," Vaelther growled, its voice dropping lower, almost menacing. "We tracked the escape pod to your vessel. Hand over." "The human, or we will retrieve her ourselves," Lisa hesitated, glancing at Ethan briefly. He could see the conflict in her eyes, the struggle between protecting her crew and avoiding outright war. Finally, she addressed the ambassador once more. "We require proof of your claims. Till then, we cannot comply," Vaelther emitted, a low, guttural sound that might have been laughter or disdain. "Very well. Consider this your final warning. Comply within 1 solar cycle, or suffer the wrath of the Accord." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the crew staring at the now-empty screen. Outside, the Zitherian ships remained motionless, their glowing lights casting an ominous glow across the void. "Well," Lisa muttered, breaking the silence. That went well. Ethan clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Whatever choice they made next. One thing was certain. Earth was about to learn the hard way just how dangerous first contact could be. Document Part 4. The news of the Zitherian ultimatum spread like wildfire across the stellar horizon. Within minutes, every crew member knew that an alien fleet was hovering outside their ship, demanding the return of Claire Dawson. Panic rippled through the corridors, and whispers of war filled the air. For many aboard the vessel, this was humanity's first real encounter with an advanced alien species, and it wasn't going well. Captain Lisa Monroe was called an emergency meeting in the briefing room, gathering her senior staff to discuss their options. Ethan Cole sat quietly at the table, his hands clasped tightly together as he listened to the heated debate unfolding around him. He felt responsible for everything that had happened. If he hadn't rescued Claire, none of this would have occurred. But now, there was no turning back. "We can't give her up," Rachel Meyer said firmly, breaking the tense silence. "She's injured, traumatized, and clearly terrified of them. Whatever they want her for, it isn't good." "And what do you suggest we do instead?" Lisa shot back, her voice sharp. "Refuse them and start a war. Because that's exactly where this is headed." Rachel leaned forward, her expression unwavering. "If we hand her over, we're telling the universe that humanity doesn't stand by its own people. Is that the message we want to send?" Ethan looked down at the table, guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders. Rachel's words echoed what he'd been thinking since the moment he brought Claire aboard. But deep down, he also understood Lisa's fears. The Zitherians were powerful, far more advanced than humans could ever hope to be. Defying them might mean destruction, not just for the stellar horizon, but for Earth itself. What about diplomacy? Ethan ventured hesitantly, drawing everyone's attention. "Maybe we can talk to them, explain that we didn't know who she was, or what she meant to them when we found her. Maybe there's a way to work this out without bloodshed," Lisa sighed, rubbing her temples as if trying to ward off an impending headache. "Diplomacy sounds nice in theory, Ethan, but let's not forget they've already given us an ultimatum. They don't seem interested in negotiation." "They haven't attacked yet," Ethan pointed out. "That has to mean something, right? Maybe they're willing to listen if we approach them the right way. Or maybe they're just waiting for reinforcements." Lieutenant Jordan Hayes chimed in, his tone skeptical. "We don't know anything about these creatures, for all we know they're using this as a distraction while they prepare to strike." The room fell silent again, the weight of the situation pressing down on everyone. Each option carried risks, and none guaranteed survival. Lisa finally stood, pacing slowly along the length of the table. "Here's the plan," she said after a long pause. "We'll send a message to Earth Command explaining the situation, but carefully. We won't mention Claire directly. We'll frame it as a potential diplomatic incident involving the Zitherians. In the meantime, we keep working on decoding the rest of her neural implant. If we can find concrete evidence of what really happened during her mission, it might give us leverage. And if Earth orders us to hand her over?" Rachel asked, her voice tight. Lisa hesitated, then met her gaze squarely. "Then we'll deal with that bridge when we come to it." Back on Earth, the arrival of the Stellar Horizon S report sparked chaos among world leaders. Emergency meetings were convened in secret bunkers beneath major cities, attended by politicians, military commanders, and scientists. Screens displayed live feeds of the Zetharian ships looming near Saturn, their glowing hulls casting eerie shadows across the planet's rings. The sight sent shivers down even the most hardened spines. Debate raged over how to respond. Some argued for appeasement, believing that surrendering Claire was the only way to avoid catastrophe. Others insisted on defiance, seeing her rescue as proof that humanity could hold its ground against even the most formidable adversaries. Tensions escalated further when classified documents surfaced revealing fragments of the covert mission Claire had been part of, a mission authorized by Earth's highest-ranking officials. Among those present was General Marcus Hale, a grizzled veteran known for his hawkish views. He slammed his fist on the conference table, his voice booming through the chamber. This isn't about one woman. It's about showing the universe that we won't roll over and die at the first sign of trouble. Handing her over makes us look weak. Weakness invites aggression. Across from him, Senator Laura Bennett shook her head, her tone measured but firm. And starting a war with beings who could wipe us out in seconds makes us look suicidal. We need to think strategically, not emotionally. If we can negotiate, we should try. The argument went on for hours, neither side willing to budge. Meanwhile, public opinion began to fracture as news leaked to the media. Social networks lit up with hashtags like #SaveClaire and #StandWithEarth, dividing humanity into two camps. Those who saw Claire as a symbol of hope and resilience, and those who viewed her as a liability too dangerous to protect amidst the turmoil. A third faction emerged, one advocating for transparency. Dr. Emily Grant, renowned astrophysicist and advisor to the United Nations, addressed the assembly. With quiet authority, we're missing the bigger picture here. This isn't just about Claire or the Zetharians. It's about trust. Humanity needs to decide whether we want to build bridges or walls. Surrendering her without understanding why she's so important to them sets a dangerous precedent. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to seek answers before making any rash decisions. Her words struck a chord with some, but not enough to sway the majority. By the end of the session, Earth Command issued a directive. The Stellar Horizon was ordered to maintain radio silence until further notice. Any communication with the Zetharians required prior approval, effectively tying the crew's hands back aboard the Stellar Horizon. Ethan struggled to reconcile the conflicting emotions swirling inside him. On one hand, he felt pride in humanity's determination to stand united. On the other, he couldn't shake the fear that their defiance might lead to disaster. As he walked through the ship's narrow corridors, he noticed how the mood had shifted. Crew members moved with purpose, their faces etched with determination. Some practiced combat drills in preparation for a potential boarding attempt, while others worked tirelessly to reinforce the ship's defenses. When Ethan reached the infirmary, he found Claire sitting upright in bed, staring blankly at the wall. She looked better. Physically, her bruises had faded, and color had returned to her cheeks, but her eyes betrayed the storm raging within her. Rachel was nearby, reviewing data on a tablet, but she glanced up as Ethan entered. "How are you holding up?" Ethan asked softly, pulling up a chair beside Claire. She didn't answer immediately, her gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the bulkhead. Finally, she turned to him, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted any of this. I thought I was doing the right thing." "What do you mean?" Ethan prompted, gently. Claire hesitated, then took a shaky breath. "The mission, it wasn't supposed to go wrong. We were sent to make peace, to show the Zetharians that we're worth allying with, but someone betrayed us. Someone on our side sabotaged the negotiations, framing them for an attack they didn't commit." Ethan's heart sank. Who? Who did this?" "I don't know," Claire admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "All I know is that I barely escaped with my life. One of their officers helped me get to the escape pod. He risked everything to save me. And now..." Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. Ethan placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, unsure of what to say. The implications of her revelation were staggering. If rogue operatives within humanity's own ranks had sabotaged the mission, then Earth's leadership wasn't innocent in this conflict. The question was whether anyone else would believe her or care. Rachel stepped closer, her expression grim. If what you're saying is true, we need proof, something undeniable, that we can use to expose the truth. Claire nodded weakly. It's all in my neural implant, the logs, the recordings, everything. But parts of it are encrypted. Even I don't have full access. Then we'll crack it, Rachel said firmly. Whatever it takes. As the three of them sat together in the dimly lit infirmary, the hum of machinery filling the silence, Ethan felt a spark of hope amid the despair. If they could uncover the truth, they might still have a chance to prevent war. But time was running out, and the Zitherians weren't known for their patience. Document. Part 5. The next few days aboard the Stellar Horizon were a blur of activity. Every crew member worked tirelessly, driven by the looming threat outside their ship and the weight of Earth's expectations. For Ethan Cole, the pressure was unbearable. He spent most of his time helping Rachel Meyer decode the neural implant embedded in Claire Dawson's wrist, poring over fragments of corrupted data while trying to ignore the constant hum of tension in the air. Claire herself was quieter than ever, retreating into herself as the reality of her situation sank in. She rarely spoke, unless directly asked a question, and even then her answers were short and guarded. The fear in her eyes never faded, no matter how many reassurances Ethan and Rachel offered. It was clear she didn't trust anyone, not even them. Despite her reluctance, Claire agreed to help with the decryption process. Her knowledge of the implant systems proved invaluable, though it came at a cost. Each session left her visibly drained, her hands trembling and her face pale. But she pushed through, determined to uncover the truth buried within the device. This section is encrypted differently, Rachel said one evening, pointing to a string of symbols on the screen. It's like a puzzle box each layer locks. The next one tighter. Claire leaned closer, squinting at the display. That's classified intel, she murmured. Only high-ranking officials would have access to it. Can you bypass it? Ethan asked. Hopefully Claire hesitated, then nodded. Maybe, but it'll take time, and we'll need to be careful. If they detect any tampering, they might wipe the entire thing remotely. Rachel frowned. They... You mean the Zitherians? Claire replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I mean, our people. Someone on Earth must still be monitoring this. Her words sent a chill down Ethan's spine. If rogue operatives were watching them from afar, then nothing about this mission or its failure was an isolated incident. The conspiracy ran deeper than anyone had imagined. As the hours dragged on, progress was slow but steady, a bit by bit. The team unraveled the layers of encryption, revealing snippets of audio recordings, video footage, and written logs. What they found painted a horrifying picture. The mission to negotiate peace with the Zitherians had been doomed from the start. According to the logs, key members of the diplomatic team had received conflicting orders from different branches of Earth's government. Some were instructed to pursue genuine cooperation, while others were told to sabotage the talks and provoke hostility. The goal, it seemed, was to create a pretext for war, one that would rally humanity behind a common enemy and justify massive military expansion. I don't understand, Ethan muttered, staring at the screen in disbelief. Why would anyone do this? Starting a war with the Zitherians makes no sense. We'd lose. It's not about winning, Claire explained bitterly. It's about control. Fear unites people. When you give them something to hate, they stop questioning what's happening right in front of them. Rachel shook her head, her expression grim. So we're pawns in someone else's game, just like always. Ethan clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. We can't let them get away with this. If we expose the truth, maybe. We can stop the war before it starts, but how? Rachel countered sharply. Even if we send this data back to Earth, who's going to believe us? The same people who orchestrated this mess are the ones in charge. She's right, Claire added quietly. They'll bury the evidence or worse. Blame us for fabricating it. We're expendable. For a moment, silence filled the room. The enormity of their situation weighed heavily on all three of them. They were trapped between two impossible choices: surrender to the Zetherians and risk annihilation, or defy them and trigger a conflict humanity couldn't win. Finally, Ethan stood pacing back and forth as he thought aloud. What if we go straight to the source? To the Zetherians themselves? If we show them this data, prove that humans weren't responsible for the betrayal, maybe they'll listen. You're talking about walking into the lion's den, Rachel said flatly. They've already threatened to destroy us. Why would they care about some random files? Because it proves they were framed, Ethan insisted. If we can convince them that the attack wasn't their fault either, maybe they'll see we're not the enemy. Claire looked up at him, her gaze wary but thoughtful. It's risky, but it might be our only chance. The decision to approach the Zithians wasn't made lightly. Captain Lisa Monroe called another emergency meeting, presenting Ethan's plan to her senior staff. Predictably, reactions were mixed. This is insane, Jordan Hayes snapped, shaking his head. We're talking about handing ourselves over to aliens who've already declared us guilty. How is that supposed to end well? It's better than sitting here waiting for them to attack, Ethan argued. If we do nothing, we're dead anyway. At least this way, we have a shot at clearing our names. Lisa rubbed her temples, clearly torn. And what happens if they don't believe us? Or worse, if they use the data against us? We'll make sure they understand, Ethan replied firmly. We'll explain everything: the sabotage, the betrayal, the cover-up. If they're as advanced as we think, they'll see through the lies. After a long pause, Lisa sighed and nodded reluctantly. But we prepare for every possible outcome. That means arming ourselves and setting protocols for evacuation in case things go south. With the plan set, the crew sprang into action. Weapons systems were brought online, escape pods prepped, and critical data backed up in case the ship was compromised. Meanwhile, Ethan, Claire, and Rachel finalized the presentation they intended to deliver to the Zetherians, compiling the decrypted files into a coherent narrative. On the morning of the scheduled meeting, the atmosphere aboard the Stellar Horizon was electric with anxiety. As the crew gathered on the bridge, Ethan felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was at the moment that would decide their fate. When the Zetherian ambassador, Vaelther, appeared on the view screen once more, his towering form loomed larger than ever. His multifaceted eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dim blue light of his ship. Ethan stepped forward, holding a tablet containing the evidence they'd uncovered. We have information you need to see, Ethan began, his voice steady. Despite the knot of fear in his stomach about the events that led to this confrontation, Vaelther tilted his head slightly, studying Ethan with an unreadable expression. Speak quickly. My patience wears thin. Ethan swallowed hard but pressed on. The attack on your delegation, it wasn't carried out by humans acting under official orders. It was orchestrated by rogue operatives within our own ranks. They sabotaged the negotiations to provoke conflict, hoping to frame your people for crimes they didn't commit. A low rumble emanated from Vaelther, a sound that could have been skepticism or anger. You expect me to accept this explanation? Without proof? That's why we're showing you this, Rachel interjected, stepping forward to hold up the tablet. On the screen, fragments of the decrypted logs played in sequence, accompanied by timestamps and authentication codes. These are direct records from the mission. They confirm everything we've said. For several long moments, Vaelther remained silent, his glowing eyes fixed on the display. Then, unexpectedly, he gestured toward one of his aides, who retrieved the data transmission and began analyzing it. The validity of your claims will be assessed, Vaelther rumbled finally. Until then, you will remain under observation. Attempt to flee, and you will be destroyed. With that, the transmission ended, leaving the crew staring at the blank screen. No one spoke for a moment, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy in the air. Well, Lisa said dryly, breaking the silence. That went better than I expected. Ethan managed a weak smile, though his nerves were still frayed. For now, they had bought themselves time, but whether it would be enough remained to be seen. Hours later, as the crew waited anxiously for the Zetherians' verdict, Claire sat alone in the infirmary, staring at the wall. Despite the evidence they'd presented, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing a losing game. The Zetherians were proud, intelligent beings. Would they truly forgive such a betrayal, even if it wasn't committed by humanity as a whole? Her thoughts were interrupted when Ethan entered the room, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to her wordlessly, then sat down beside her. "Thanks," Claire murmured, taking a cautious sip. "For everything." Ethan shrugged, offering a small smile. "We're not out of the woods yet, but we've got a fighting chance." Claire nodded, though doubt lingered in her eyes. "Do you really think they'll believe us?" "I hope so," Ethan admitted. "But even if they don't, at least we tried. Sometimes that's all you can do." As they sat together in silence, the hum of the ship's engines filling the void, Claire allowed herself a rare moment of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could turn the tide. And if they couldn't, at least they'd face the storm head-on instead of running from it. Document. Part 6. The hours stretched into days as the stellar horizon remained under the watchful gaze of the Zetherian fleet. Tension aboard the ship was palpable, with every crew member acutely aware that their fate rested in the hands or, rather, the claws of an alien species they barely understood. Captain Lisa Monroe ordered constant drills to keep everyone prepared for the worst, but even she couldn't hide the exhaustion etched into her face. Ethan Cole tried to stay busy, helping Rachel Meyer refine their presentation and ensuring all systems were ready for any scenario. But no matter how much he worked, his mind kept drifting back to Claire Dawson. She had been unusually quiet since their meeting with Vaelther, retreating further into herself as if bracing for inevitable disaster. Ethan couldn't blame her. The weight of everything she'd endured, then the stakes of their gamble was enough to crush anyone. One evening, while the rest of the crew focused on routine tasks, Ethan found Claire sitting alone in the observation deck. The large windows offered a breathtaking view of Saturn's rings. Glowing faintly in the distance behind the looming shapes of the Zetherian ships, Claire sat cross-legged on the floor, staring out at the void without really seeing it. "Okay?" Ethan asked softly, taking a seat beside her. Claire glanced at him briefly before turning her attention back to the stars. "Does it look like I'm okay?" Ethan sighed, leaning forward to rest his elbows on his knees. "Fair point. But you're not alone in this, you know. We're all in it together." Claire gave a bitter laugh, shaking her head. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about me or you or even the stellar horizon. It's bigger than that. The Zetherians decide we're lying or worse. If they figure out who's really behind the sabotage, won't just be us paying the price. It'll be Earth. Billions of people will suffer because of what happened." Her words hung heavy in the air between them. Ethan wanted to argue, to reassure her that everything would work out, but he knew she was right. The truth they'd uncovered wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. Exposing it came with risks far greater than any of them could fully comprehend. "I guess we'll find out soon enough," Ethan said finally, his voice steady despite the unease gnawing at him. "Either way, we did the right thing by trying." Claire didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached up to touch the neural implant still embedded in her wrist, tracing its edges absent-mindedly. Sometimes doing the right thing doesn't make a difference. Sometimes it just makes things worse. Meanwhile, aboard the lead Zetherian vessel, Ambassador Vaelther convened with his advisors in a dimly lit chamber filled with pulsating light panels. The data recovered from the humans had been thoroughly analyzed, and while some members of the council dismissed it as irrelevant propaganda, others saw merit in its claims. "The evidence appears legitimate," one advisor noted, his elongated fingers gesturing toward the holographic display hovering above the table. "Timestamps align with known events, and encryption methods match those used by human security protocols." "Legitimate or not, it changes nothing," another countered sharply. "Their actions violated sacred agreements. Trust cannot be restored through mere explanations." Vaelther listened silently, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the shifting lights around him. He was a patient being, accustomed to weighing decisions carefully before acting. Humanity's audacity intrigued him. They had defied expectations, presenting information that implicated their own leaders rather than denying responsibility outright. Such behavior was rare among species new to interstellar politics. "What of the fugitive?" Valthor asked after a long pause. "The human female who bears witness to these crimes? What role does she play in this narrative?" "She is central," replied the first advisor. "Her testimony corroborates the data, and her survival suggests interference from within her ranks. Perhaps she holds further insight into the conspiracy." Valthor considered this, his expression unreadable. "Then she must be questioned directly. Bring her before us." Back on the stellar horizon, alarms blared suddenly, jolting the crew into action. Ethan and Claire rushed to the bridge, where Captain Lisa Monroe stood rigidly in front of the main view screen. A message from the Zetherians flashed across the display. ***, prepare the human known as Claire Dawson for transport. Compliance is non-negotiable. ***, they want me," Claire whispered, her voice trembling. "They're coming for me." Lisa turned to face her, her expression grim. "We won't let them take you without a fight. Not unless you agree to go." Claire hesitated, glancing at Ethan. For a moment, fear clouded her features. But then something shifted, a spark of determination flickered in her eyes. "No," she said firmly. "I'll go. If this is my chance to prove the truth, I have to take it." Ethan stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone. Let us come with you." Claire shook her head. "It's too risky. If they see the whole crew as a threat, they might attack. Just promise me you'll keep fighting, no matter what happens." Before anyone could protest further, the comm system crackled to life again. Valthor's towering form appeared on the screen, his voice calm but authoritative. "Your compliance has been noted. Shuttle will arrive shortly to retrieve the fugitive. Any resistance will result in immediate retaliation." Lisa clenched her fists, clearly torn between protecting her crew and avoiding bloodshed. Finally, she nodded curtly. "Understood." As the transmission ended, Ethan accompanied Claire to the airlock, where a small escort team waited to ensure her safe passage. Rachel joined them, carrying a portable medical kit in case Claire needed support. During the journey, despite the gravity of the situation, there was an unspoken understanding among them that this wasn't goodbye, but merely the next step in their fight. When the Zetherian shuttle docked, sleek design glinting ominously under the ship's floodlights, Claire took a deep breath and stepped forward. Before entering the airlock, she turned to Ethan one last time. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "thank you for believing in me." Then she disappeared inside the shuttle, leaving Ethan and the others to watch helplessly as it detached from the stellar horizon and sped toward the alien fleet. Once aboard the Zetherian flagship, Claire was escorted to a sterile interrogation chamber, illuminated by cold blue light. Valthor awaited her, flanked by two imposing guards, whose presence radiated menace. Though fear threatened to overwhelm her, Claire forced herself to stand tall, meeting the ambassador's gaze squarely. "You have presented evidence of betrayal within your ranks," Valthor began, his synthesized voice echoing through the room. "Explain." Claire swallowed hard, steadying her nerves. "What you saw in those files is true. Our mission was sabotaged by rogue operatives seeking to provoke conflict. They framed your people for an attack they didn't commit. Barely escaped with my life thanks to one of your officers who risked everything to save me." Valthor studied her intently, his multifaceted eyes searching for deception. "Why should we trust you? You are humane a species proven capable of treachery." "Because I've seen the cost of lies firsthand," Claire replied passionately. "I lost friends, colleagues, and nearly my own life because of what happened. If you destroy Earth based on false pretenses, you'll be playing right into the hands of those responsible. Is that what you want?" For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then Valthor gestured to one of his aides, who activated a holographic display showing fragmented communications intercepted from Earth. Among them were directives confirming the existence of a covert operation aimed at destabilizing relations with the Zetherians. "This corroborates your claims," Valthor acknowledged, his tone neutral. "But trust must be earned. Your world has much to answer for." Claire nodded, relief washing over her. "I understand. I'm willing to help however I can." As the interrogation continued, Ethan and the crew of the Stellar Horizon waited anxiously for news. Hours passed with no word from the Zetharians, leaving them to wonder whether Claire's bravery had paid off for sealed humanity's doom. Finally, the comm system crackled to life once more. Valther's voice echoed through the ship. Asterisk, asterisk, a temporary ceasefire has been declared. Further negotiations will determine the future of our relations. Be warned, any further acts of aggression will not be tolerated. Asterisk, asterisk, the announcement was met with stunned silence on the bridge. Slowly, smiles spread across faces as the reality sank in. They had succeeded, at least for now. Ethan exhaled deeply, feeling the tension drain from his body. She did it, he murmured, almost unable to believe it himself. Rachel placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression softening. Yeah, she did. Though the battle wasn't over, a fragile peace had been forged, one built on courage, truth, and the hope that understanding could triumph over fear. Document Part 7. The temporary ceasefire brought a sense of relief to the crew of the Stellar Horizon. But it was short-lived. The fragile peace hung by a thread, and everyone aboard the ship knew that one wrong move could shatter it completely. While the Zetharians had agreed to negotiate further, their tone remained cold and distrustful. It was clear they weren't ready to forgive or forget. Ethan Cole tried to focus on his duties, helping Rachel Meyer analyze additional data from Claire's neural implant in case more evidence was needed. But his thoughts kept drifting back to Claire. What was happening to her aboard the Zetharian flagship? Was she safe? Had they believed her story, or were they interrogating her relentlessly? On the third day of the ceasefire, Captain Lisa Monroe called another meeting with her senior staff. The mood in the briefing room was tense, with everyone bracing for bad news. Lisa stood at the head of the table, her expression grim as she addressed the group. We've received intel suggesting that Earth Command isn't taking this ceasefire seriously, she began, her voice tight. In fact, they're actively preparing for war. What? Ethan blurted out, his stomach sinking. But we just avoided disaster. Why would they? Because they don't trust the Zetharians any more than the Zetharians trust us, Lisa interrupted sharply. And because someone high up still thinks starting a fight is better than risking cooperation? Jordan Hayes, the communications officer, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. So what does that mean for us? Are we supposed to sit here while Earth builds weapons behind our backs? It means we need to tread carefully, Lisa replied. If the Zetharians find out Earth is mobilizing forces, they'll see it as an act of aggression. And if that happens... She trailed off, letting the implications hang in the air. Rachel shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. This is insane. We've risked everything to expose the truth, and now Earth wants to throw it all away. Do they even care about what's at stake? They care about power, Ethan muttered bitterly. Not people, not peace. Lisa nodded, though her expression remained troubled. Unfortunately, we can't stop them. To keep this fragile truce alive long enough for negotiations to succeed. Meanwhile, aboard the Zetharian flagship, Claire Dawson faced relentless questioning. Ambassador Valther and his advisors probed every detail of her testimony, searching for inconsistencies or hidden motives. Though exhausted, Claire held firm, determined to prove her sincerity. At one point, Valther leaned closer, his multifaceted eyes glowing faintly. You claim your leaders betrayed you, yet you remain loyal to your species. Why? Hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Because humanity isn't defined by its worst members. Yes, there are people who lie and manipulate for their own gain, but there are also those who believe in doing what's right, no matter how hard it is. I'm one of them. Valthar studied her silently, then gestured to one of his aides. A holographic display appeared, showing intercepted transmissions from Earth Command. Orders were being issued to deploy fleets near Zetharian borders, along with plans for experimental weapons designed to counter alien technology. This confirms your claims of betrayal, Baylor said finally. But it raises new concerns. If your leaders continue down this path, war may become unavoidable. Claire felt a chill run down her spine. She had hoped exposing the conspiracy would be enough to prevent conflict, but now it seemed humanity's paranoia might doom them all. Please, she said urgently. Give us more time. There are good people working to stop this. If you attack now, you'll only make things worse. Althor didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to his advisors, exchanging quiet clicks and hums in their native language. After a moment, he turned back to Claire. Very well. We'll extend the ceasefire for now. But know this, patience has limits. Back on the stellar horizon, tensions reached a breaking point when Lieutenant Jordan Hayes made a shocking discovery. While monitoring encrypted channels, he stumbled upon classified orders meant for the crew. Instructions to sabotage the negotiations and framed the Zetherians for initiating hostilities. Hayes immediately reported his findings to Captain Lisa Monroe, who convened yet another emergency meeting. This time, however, the atmosphere was explosive. You have got to be kidding me, Ethan snapped, slamming his fist on the table. They want us to start a war? On purpose? It's not just us, Lisa said grimly. Every human vessel in this sector is receiving similar orders. Someone on Earth wants this conflict to happen. Rachel shook her head in disbelief. But why? What's the point of throwing billions of lives into chaos? To consolidate power, Hayes answered darkly. Fear unites people. If Earth faces a common enemy, dissenting voices will disappear overnight. They'll rally behind whoever promises protection even if it means authoritarian control. The realization hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He had always believed in humanity's potential for greatness, but now he saw how easily fear could corrupt even the noblest ideals. We can't let them get away with this, he said firmly. If we expose these orders, maybe we can stop them. How? Lisa asked skeptically. Even if we send the evidence back to Earth, who's going to listen? The same people issuing these orders will destroy us before we can speak. There's one person who might, Rachel interjected suddenly. Dr. Emily Grant, the astrophysicist advising the UN. She's been advocating for transparency since this mess started. If anyone can help us, it's her. Ethan nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. Then we send everything we've got directly to her. Bypass Earth Command entirely. Lisa hesitated, clearly torn. Finally, she sighed and nodded reluctantly. All right. But if this blows up in our faces, we're on our own. That night, Ethan worked tirelessly with Rachel and Hayes to compile the damning evidence into a single transmission. Decrypted logs from Claire's neural implant, intercepted orders from Earth Command, and recordings of their interactions with the Zetherians. Every piece of information was authenticated and timestamped, leaving no room for doubt as they prepared to send the transmission. Hayes glanced nervously at Ethan. You realize this makes us traitors, right? If Earth finds out, they'll arrest you or worse. Ethan met his gaze squarely. Maybe, but if we don't try, we're already lost. With a deep breath, Hayes activated the signal, sending the data hurtling toward Earth. For a moment, the room was silent, the weight of their actions settling over them. Well, Rachel said finally, breaking the tension. Guess we're officially fugitives now? The next morning, chaos erupted aboard the stellar horizon. An encrypted message arrived from Earth Command, demanding immediate surrender and threatening severe consequences for insubordination. Before Lisa could respond, alarms blared. As multiple Earth vessels emerged from hyperspace surrounding the ship, what the hell is going on? Ethan demanded, rushing to the bridge. Lisa stood rigidly in front of the main view screen, her jaw clenched. It seems someone leaked our location and our little rebellion to Earth Command. They've sent reinforcements to take us into custody before anyone could react. Another transmission came through from Dr. Emily Grant. Her face appeared on the screen, pale but resolute. Captain Monroe, Ethan, Rachel Liv, received your message. You've done the right thing, but you're in grave danger. Earth Command knows about the leak, and they're coming for you. You must flee immediately. Flee where? Lisa asked sharply. We're surrounded. Emily hesitated, then spoke quickly. There's a remote research station near Neptune. It's abandoned, but it has enough supplies to last months. Hide there until I can rally support for your cause. Trust no one, not even other ships. Lisa nodded grimly. Understood, thank you. As the transmission ended, Lisa barked orders to the crew, preparing the ship for evasive maneuvers. The Earth vessels closed in, weapon systems powering up ominously. Brace yourselves. Lisa shouted as the stellar horizon surged forward, narrowly avoiding a barrage of plasma torpedoes. Ethan gripped the edge of his console, heart pounding as the ship jolted violently. Around him, the crew worked frantically to evade capture, their movements precise despite the chaos. Finally, after what felt like hours, the stellar horizon slipped into hyperspace, leaving the pursuing fleet behind. As the stars streaked past outside the windows, Ethan slumped into a chair, exhaustion washing over him. "We did it," Rachel murmured, collapsing beside him. "For now, anyway." Ethan nodded, though his mind raced with uncertainty. Psst. Had escaped for no, but the battle was far from over. Somewhere out there, powerful forces were moving against them, and if they couldn't find allies soon, their fragile resistance might crumble under the weight of Earth's ambition. Hours later, as the stellar horizon approached the abandoned research station near Neptune, Ethan stared out at the desolate landscape ahead. The icy planet loomed large in the distance, its pale blue glow reflecting off the ship's hull. It was a lonely place, isolated and cold, but for now, it was their sanctuary. As the ship docked, Ethan turned to Rachel and Lisa, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. Whatever happens next, we stick together. That's how we survive." Rachel smiled faintly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Agreed. Let's show them what humanity's really made of."